Welcome back to the Quiet on Set podcast. Today, Lachlan and I will be discussing the first episode of The Last of Us, the PS exclusive 2013 game come to HBO series with Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey. So The Last of Us is a zombie survival story focused game set in the post-apocalyptic America. It comes from the game studio Naughty Dog, which we are both a fan of. They got 4 of the Uncharted games, which recently got a less favored movie adaptation with Tom Holland and Mark Wahlberg that, by the both of us, wasn't as warmly received. Now, Lachlan, what did you make of the first episode of this adaptation for The Last of Us?
Not bad. Not great. Not bad, but not great. Interesting take, isn't it?
Because I got no clue where you end up. What was something that... Well, let's give a general spoiler warning. If you haven't played the games, we won't be spoiling anything that goes beyond episode 1.
You haven't.
I have now. I actually played this more recently. I have a bit. I played half of the game. I'll play the second half until episode 2 comes out, and I'll probably end up playing part 2 as well in the coming weeks before the series closes out. But yeah, Lachlan, what's great about the show? Maybe let's start there.
Before I jump into what's great about the show, just a quick brief summary. I have played The Last of Us, the original game, a lot. Like, I've probably played it a good 7 or 8 times. That's not counting...
All the way through?
All the way through, yeah.
Jesus.
And this is since it released in 2013, I've played it a good number of times because I'm a massive Naughty Dog fan. I loved Uncharted as a series, absolutely adored it.
Yeah.
And then I heard they're doing this change up, and I was quite young because this game is R-rated. Couldn't buy it when I was that age, so I had to download it off the PS Store and pretend I was 18, but whatever. Anyway, massive fan of The Last of Us. Absolutely adore the game. I know it in and out. So when I heard they were adapting it to the screen, there's a lot of mixed feelings because, one, if you look at any video game adaptation, the perfect one is Uncharted. There is a lot of bad stuff because they don't know what to adapt. And the thing is, they're adapting 4 main series games. You said there was only 4 Uncharted games. There's actually 5 Uncharted games. Lost Legacy is technically an Uncharted game.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, Lost Legacy is an Uncharted game. It was a DLC, but eventually became a full game.
Oh.
But those first 3 games before Uncharted 4 came out are very, very gamey, but they have a big inspiration of like Indiana Jones as an example, but they're still very gamey. Yeah. The Last of Us as a game is more cinematic than it is gamey in my opinion, because a lot of these big moments take place as cinematic motion capture and voice acting, and you still have moments that happen outside of cinematics in gameplay, which are also motion capture-ish and also voice acting as well. This is the best part because they're essentially adapting something that's already been made as a film, because cinematically wise, The Last of Us is spectacular. You've played the remake of it. It's stunning, right?
Yeah, it looks incredible.
Narrative-wise, I will hands down say, hand on my heart right now, I think Last of Us is one of the best stories to ever be written for any kind of medium. Book, movie, TV show, game. I think it's a spectacular story. I think it does have some flaws. As I've played it many times, there's some flaws in it. But I do think overall, it is a spectacular story that was written and then made to be a game. So as a TV show, sorry, I've gone on my little rant there, but as a TV show, they're adapting something that's not so much written, but has already been adapted from a script onto screen. And that's the hardest part, is to pick what you're taking away. All games are very similar like this. There's a script that goes along, there's a story that goes along, and they're adapting it. Doom, even though it's very simple, has adapted into a video game. There is also the Mario movie, which is pretty basic when it comes to story in their video games, but is being adapted into a movie. The Last of Us. So they're going to pick and choose because not everything is going to adapt well into a video game. Episode 1, if you do not have any sort of understanding of The Last of Us and is just a standalone, because I'm watching it from two standpoints, as just a standalone TV show, I would be on a positive note. I would be like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's cool. It's good.
Yeah.
And I think it
It's
is.
got like a lot of the HBO miniseries type of energy, the way that they set up the relationship between Joel and his daughter Sarah.
Yeah.
And I think it goes for the same gut punch. Obviously, the people who've played the game know where it ends up, and then we actually end up skipping ahead 20 years, and we end up losing Sarah as well, but you get connected to her. I feel like they do it well enough that I know where it ends up, and I know that it's gonna be an emotional gut punch. And I played the game earlier that night, watched the series the next morning, and the one in the game, I was also live on stream, so, like, it made me almost tear up, but it was, like, really emotional. The series actually made me tear up. So I was like, "Okay, well, maybe I think the medium of film is a bit easier to convey emotion," and knowing, like, some of the stuff that comes later on in this game, I feel like this is gonna play, like, so well on screen. The
Mm.
only, um the only fear I got is that, like, the opening act of the game is very much like super adaptable into a serialized story in TV form. I don't know about the rest of it when it becomes more survival based, because I feel like that's what most game adaptations struggle with like the core gameplay of the game, which it is a lot of like cinematics. That why I think this is quite a good one to adapt overall. They struggle with like how much they want to change up or how true they want to stay, because certain things just don't play as well if you stay close to the game, and if you go further away they're also like completely detached. So I feel like so far, like the pills and the boost that he drinks, it's a nice nod to the game, that's like your main way of healing. Stuff like that I think is pretty sweet, and even the stuff they change up. For example, like one of the things I think so far, having played like a bit more than half of the first game, the weakest thing in the story so far was the whole like beginning part, the Robert plot, where they go for the weapons, and he has sold them
Terrible.
to I guess someone else, and then the Firefly just pops up from nowhere being shot, and I thought like, okay, this is some dumbass Deus Ex Machina moving the story along type of shit, and I felt like in the series they did that way better. The conflict was already resolved. It made sense that, like, I guess it wasn't like by the military that she'd been shot, but by Robert's guys. Robert is already dead. I like that more. And we just get a tease of what Tess and Joel are capable of, you know? It's more of like I'm blanking on her name, but like the Firefly lady, what she
Marlene.
says, you know? Marlene, exactly, yeah.
So I'm the opposite of this, because
Right.
Robert is a great introduction to the Tess and Joel relationship, in the sense that they will fuck you up
I
if
guess,
you
yeah.
double cross them. And that's the
Yeah.
unfortunate part, is that there's a good moment in the games, and obviously you're versing, almost 3 to 4 hours of gameplay, condensed down to an hour and a half. And that's not including cinematics, right? There's a lot of stuff they've squeezed
Yeah.
into this first episode. Um,
Yeah.
but like the thing is, Robert is a great introduction to what their limits are. They are, at the end of the day, very dark people, and we'll eventually get to the comparisons of Joel and Ellie versus Joel and Ellie on HBO, right? HBO, Joel and Ellie, and
Yeah.
Naughty Dog, Joel and Ellie. But it,
Right.
I was a bit disappointed that it was just kind of like, Robert's here, Robert's gone, because Robert's a bit of a bitch, but I have grown to like Robert as an opening, because it shows you that Tess and Joel are willing to do what they need to do if they're double crossed. They're not going to take shit from anybody.
Yeah.
And and the thing is, with games, you have collectibles, you can hear people talking in the background. You're not going to have that with movies and stuff, but I just didn't like how you just rock up. They walk into this moment, and there's the battery, there's Robert dead, there was a shootout, there's Marlene. Like, that feels more
Right.
Deus Ex Machina to me than Marlene, who is a leader of a rebellion that's failing in the video games. And there's
Yeah.
obviously been a big firefight with a big explosion beforehand at the QZ. This is not me spoiling the TV show, by the way. This is just this is what they didn't include in the video game
Comparisons, yeah.
adaptation.
Yeah.
Instead, it's essentially like they shot each other and here they are. That moment there wasn't a good adaptation.
I guess
because
it feels more like smaller scale, ultimately. And it feels like, okay, well, I don't know, because in the game they also don't show the fight. That's why I don't like it. And just after they killed him, she just pops up. I think I still would have liked to have seen the moment where they show that they would take care of Robert. Um, Even just the same scene, but it's at like the Fireflies headquarters, and they find the battery, and Robert is still alive, and he finishes him off. I think that would have been for me, like an even better way, the best version of the story, where the conflict is between the Fireflies and Robert, and not between the government. Because I feel like we've already gotten that conflict, and we just really showed him standing on the last legs. And I don't know, I like the way that it's introduced as well. The issue that Joel has with his brother, with Billy, I think, right? That
Tommy.
he's trying to Tommy, sorry. Billy
I'll
is,
give it to
yeah.
you.
Yeah, no, yeah, someone else. Uh, Also a character, but we'll get to him later. But yeah, get to Tommy, and that he's also connected to the Fireflies, and basically been taken away from him because he's like on that mission. And I think that Pedro Pascal is doing an amazing job, especially after the time jump. He is just Joel. I think it works perfectly for me. The way that he portrays that character, at least so far, I guess.
For
And a
me,
lot of it will be on the the relationship between him and Ellie. That could be its downfall as well.
Joel in the games versus Pedro Pascal is that the games are more gritty, and Pedro
Yeah,
Pascal's Joel doesn't have that grittiness that the games have. And I don't think
right.
the show has got the same level of grittiness and I guess overall sense of danger that one fuck up can end it all. Uh, because they're
Yeah,
in this like sort of caged off area. Even when you get out into the outside world, it still doesn't feel dangerous per se because versing the games you are hunted down practically immediately by an entire Fedra group, which I guess is sort of
yeah.
the end of this where this episode ends. But you know, there's this no sense of
None of
it
that
can all
sneaking around
yeah.
stuff.
But more importantly,
Yeah,
to get back onto Joel's character, I'm okay with them being different because you are
yeah.
essentially doing the same thing, and it's a terrible comparison. But I'm just trying to think of someone or another character that's been done a couple times, and the first one that came to my mind was Joker. Right? There's
Yeah.
different Jokers, there's different takes on Jokers, and I've realized that if we keep being like, oh, I don't like this rendition because we keep going back to one perfect rendition. Before we got
Hmm.
Heath Ledger, Jack Nicholson's Joker was wicked. After we got
Yeah.
Heath Ledger, you know, we just are like, this is not good. This is this is the best Joker. But Jack Nicholson's Joker is just a little bit different because it's set in a different universe. That's how I'm going to perceive
Yeah.
this
Give
one.
Jared Leto a break, okay?
Fuck Jared Leto's Joker. This
I get what
TV
you mean,
show
though.
is going to be tonally different to the video games. So Joel and Ellie are
Yeah.
going to be a little bit different. I think Bella is doing a very, very similar Ellie to what Ashley Johnson does of Ellie in the games.
Hmm.
So far we haven't had a lot of Ellie. We've only had like a few moments, but in
Yeah.
those moments she's doing a great job. She almost stole the show for me in a way, but because this is mostly Joel's episode, he's not as gritty. He doesn't seem to have that, I guess, that calm anger that he has in the games, but at the same time that
Yeah.
all kind of comes out at the end. And that moment for
Yeah.
me as well was just a mixture of, oh, this is awesome. Oh, they fucked it up at the same time.
Right. Well, what did they fuck up in your mind?
The most important part to anyone who's never played the games before, that Ellie's immune.
Yeah.
It's the first time they say it out loud, and then
Hmm.
literally 10 seconds after saying it, it's a dip to black in its next episode. there should be a
Yeah.
bigger moment to that entire thing. Like, I understand that it was showing that
Mhm.
Joel will fuck you up, and he has some massive trauma from losing Sarah, and I totally get that, and I totally understand that, and that is something that they're probably gonna ride home, and
Which it don't
in
do as much in the game because
what
it's like it
he doesn't
doesn't
have the
flash you back, right?
he doesn't have the loss of
It's
Sarah.
implied.
It comes out later on, when Ellie brings up Sarah later on in the game. Joel does say you don't have that right to bring her up or bring her into this conversation. There's still that pain there
Right.
where I think they're going to focus on that more because it's a bit more relevant to the TV show version of Joel,
Yeah.
like that loss of
It's
Sarah.
more character focused when a lot of the game is can be gameplay focused than just survival. And I feel like you can't just do survival in like a series. It's just I feel like it would get really stale.
And the TV show has done a great job with adapting the right things and also changing things when they
Yeah.
need to be. Because I'll tell you what, the opening moments where you see people twitching and you're like, okay, that's cool. And then you have that shot in the neighbor's house with the old lady behind her twitching. It was unsettling, and it was perfect
Yeah.
adaptation of changing the intro to bring you into this world because you're thrown in pretty quickly with the Last of Us video game, how quickly the zombies appear,
Yeah.
how quickly the whole world changes, where in the show they ease you into it, and that's a smart thing to do. So for me,
Yeah.
whilst I do critique this quite a bit, if you have no understanding of The Last of Us, I think there's a couple things that suck. First of all, that end moment where you need to know that Ellie is immune. They're probably going to do it in the next couple episodes, but that is a significant plot point to the entire
Don't doesn't
thing.
she well she I mean she says that like she's been bitten 3 weeks ago, doesn't she? Right before it
Yes,
fades to black?
but the thing is, it's it's not that's not the part of that moment. That moment is Joel beating that Fedra agent to death. That's the shining moment. That all happens in the
Right.
background, right? That's not
Yeah.
the key focus of that scene. Where in the games it is the opposite because it's a quick takeout of the Fedra agents, and then Tess goes, "Hey, look, she's why are we shipping an infected girl?" That's a big moment.
Yeah.
They're gonna kill her. No, this is 3 weeks old. I swear to you, why would I lie to you? Why would I set you up? Yada yada. It's a big moment, right? Because they're trying to figure it out. Where it's quickly shuffled aside. Let's get to the next scene, and then there's that little radio. Oh, what's Bill and Frank up to over in Billtown kind of thing. But
Yeah.
yeah, like the other thing as well is that if you have no if you've never played The Last of Us, half the dialogue is just kind of trash. I think the dialogue is a bit stale.
Yeah. It didn't really stand out to me too much. It just feels I think like for a lot of
Oh,
people, The Walking Dead.
my lights just
Uh,
turned.
I
Because
f-
at 12 o'clock my lights automatically turn off.
now I feel like a lot of people are fed up with the survival zombie apocalypse type of story after like 11 season of The Walking Dead, and I don't feel like a lot of people were actually still watching that show. But then like the popularity of that spawned a whole bunch of adaptations coming like in that same vein, and from there it doesn't stand out other than being produced by HBO and having that like quality seal, maybe like some solid performances as well. It doesn't stand out like too much other than what's about to come in the story, and that's pretty sick. I get what you're saying. It doesn't like have riveting dialogue, but I feel like I didn't really notice that in the game as well. It's just like it was good to me. It was really good,
I think
surprisingly good.
well, no, I think that the thing is with the dialogue is that it's too like worked in to be references, like the whole,
Ah,
like because if you, as I said, if you have no understanding of the video game, the dialogue is kind of
yeah,
mediocre. But if you've played the
yeah,
video game and you hear what they say, that they are just using straight lines from the game and they're saying that, and then that's going to
yeah,
give them brownie points for people who've seen it before. But people who haven't seen it before, because it's not so much the same dialogue. It kind of just that it's like, okay, we want this line of dialogue
yeah.
here.
That's fair.
Let's rework to it. It's not the same. it just doesn't have the same flow. So for someone who's watched it, it's like, okay, it's there, but I feel like it's a bit forced to be there.
I
I
think
guess I get it.
specific. Are you specifically like referencing the scene where they arrive at Joel's apartment, and he like lays down and tells her like and she asks, "Oh, what am I supposed to do?" And he says like, "Oh, you'll figure it
Kill
out,"
in
which is
time.
1-to-1 from
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
yeah,
It's a
kill in
one to
time.
one. But there's also moments where
Yeah,
they just, you know, like the giving the watch over to Joel for the birthday from Sarah. How'd you pay? How'd you afford
yeah,
this? Selling drugs. I sell hardcore drugs. Like it's literally like word for word the same thing. And then
that
it
yeah,
changes. Yeah, he's I don't think he says the same thing. I think he says, you do better than I would, instead of saying, well, you can pay for the mortgage then, which is what they say in the game. So it's like there are
yeah,
lines that are very popular from the game that they use in the TV show, but it's not used in the exact same way. It's like they've just gotten, okay, let's get that one line and let's reword it. And sometimes those scenes just kind of don't flow as well. Um,
yeah,
like Marlene cracking a joke, being like, "I'm bleeding out here." It's like, I get it. The TV show is a little bit more lighthearted than the game, and I get that,
yeah.
especially with them playing music that's poppy, right? Yeah,
Mhm.
there's not really any of that in The Last of Us, but hey, look, you're adapting it, you're changing it. I'm still open to this show, and I'm not saying I'm not watching it. I'm going to be watching this show every week, but I am going to pull it apart, and eventually, once we get it as a whole season, I'll look at it as a whole, look at it and go, okay, this is a unique piece of adaptation. It's not the exact same as The Last of Us, but if they keep doing this kind of referential dialogue, then I'm going to get kind of sick of it quite quick.
Yeah, I can totally understand that. At that when talking about, I guess, the intensity and the gore and how gritty the original is, I think one like short little difference that goes a long way is that in the game, Sarah ends up sleeping, like they're watching something and she falls asleep on the other side of the couch, and there's a distance between them. In the series, she sleeps on Joel's lap, or like her head is like, and I feel like that's essentially what it comes down to. It's making it a bit softer for Joel's character, and that relationship to be a bit more heartwarming. When I think for like what I've played of the game so far, Ellie and Joel are really cold towards each other, and whenever there is a moment between them, or like even the hint of a moment, it's pretty big, and I feel like these moments are going to be bigger in the series, just because we aren't as like, expected to have like these most subtle moments. But what I wanted to bring up, do you think when it comes to the zombie design, the gore, I don't know, are they even called zombies, or are they like fungus people?
Fungi, I like
Uh,
that. That's
I don't know,
funny. Um,
fungi,
it depends what stage. I'm a real nerd when it comes to last. Depends what stage they are. Because if it's
stalker,
there's the
just
stalker,
the
but at
runners.
first you've kind of got a runner, then it's a stalker, then you
Yeah.
got a clicker, then you got a bloater. I know we don't want to get into spoilers of how the the rest of the show is going to go, because
Well,
they're pretty
yeah,
much
we'll
adapting it,
talk
but
spoilers for season 3, for season 1. Yeah, we'll talk about that in our season review then, where you can
but
talk
I
about
pretty much
everything.
know, like I can pretty much guess what they're going to do each week. Like I
Really, because it is
I
going to be 9 episodes. Do you think it's just
it's
going to
only
span
9.
like the first game? It's 9, yeah,
Okay, I reckon I could pretty much, if I wrote out the 9 episodes, I'll send it to you. I'll write out the 9 episodes and what's going to happen in each episode. Uh,
yeah.
and then
Predicting it, and then we can read it in
we can,
when we
yeah,
do the
then I can
season
show you in
review.
the season
Yeah.
review. Because I feel like
Hmm.
I feel like I could confidently write what's going to happen each episode. Um,
Right.
and I will be pleasantly surprised if they go in a different direction, because that will be my
Yeah.
expectation of how I would at least adapt the game if I'm going to be doing it literally almost beat by beat uh, onto a TV show. But now it's 9
Yeah.
episodes. That might throw me off a little bit. No, I don't think it will. I could probably cut out the fat of it anyway.
Right. Well,
Anyway.
looking forward to that. I think that brings us to the end of our episode 1 review. Let us know what you thought of the series so far, and if you've played the games. I'd be really curious to see, yeah, the amount of people that just tune in for the show because it is a big HBO show and there's a bunch of hype surrounding it. Or if you're like planning to play the game after, or like me, you're kind of still trying to finish it before the rest of the season is coming out. But we'll be here again when the season wraps. I think in the middle of March, there will be the season finale, the 9 episode run. And yeah, we'll have a spoiler review for that whole ordeal once it does make its bloating way around. But until then, thanks for tuning in, and I guess stay clear of fungi. Eat something else than mushrooms for a while. They're not too healthy for you. And we'll see you soon. They also got rid of the spores, or
Yeah.
like people were saying that.
Yeah.
Is it something different? Is it not fungi stuff in the
It's fungi.
original
It's
game?
it is. It's just that they got rid of the idea of spores instead, so it's just biting. Like,
Because it is really silly. I feel like that's another really silly thing. That like you get to a zone and there's just like spores in the air, and then
what do
there's
you
other.
mean it's
Maybe that
silly?
may.
For me,
Huh?
I'm mad at the fact there's no spores because it makes it so atmospheric. I reckon it's because Pedro Pascal doesn't want to wear a mask because he already wears one in
He's
one of his
fed up
TV
with,
shows.
yeah.
He's just fed up with wearing masks.
He was like,
I
market
was
the shit out of me in
I'm pretty
this one.
disappointed that there's no spores because I
I mean,
feel
yeah, I
like
would have still. I'm not against it, but I just
so
feel like that's
atmospheric.
like a silly thing. Like logically for me, it's silly, like in the game as well, not in the series adaptation. But like that, there's just that, and then you have to put it on. Where like I could see the whole time you got to wear it.
Mm.
But I mean, yeah, nothing against it. It's pretty good, pretty good overall.